Okay, well, good morning. And thank you again. Thank you, Brian. And thank you everyone for joining us this morning on OPSC's continuing series on the virtual training. This morning's training will be on the grant agreement and the OPSC online process, like Brian mentioned. And again, my name is Jason Hernandez. I'm one of the audit supervisors in fiscal services. And like Brian said, I've been at OPSC for over 20 years in various capacity. And so today we'll just go over a little bit of the history of the grant agreement and that online process. That history, the overview is that of the grant agreement process and how to submit the grant agreement on OPSC Online. Okay, what is a grant agreement? A grant agreement is an agreement between the Office of Public School Construction and an applicant who is approved by the State Allocation Board to receive school facility program funding and/or full-day kindergarten program funding. And it's an agreement that's required for each funding application. A little bit of the history of the grant agreement. In August of 2016, staff notified the board of findings and recommendations of a 2016 audit that was conducted by the Office of the State Audits and Evaluations, or OSE, and that audit was on the Proposition 1D bond funds. The audit findings from OSE included recommendations to improve the accountability in the program. Staff responded to OSE that the board would consider addressing the findings and recommendations after the outcome of the November 2016 election. With the passage of the Kindergarten through Community College Public Education Facilities Bond Act in 2016, or as most of you know, Proposition 15, and with accountability measures that were proposed in the governor's 2017 and 2018 budget, this all prompted staff to explore possible regulatory and policy changes for the school facility program and look for ways to improve accountability in the program. At its January 25th, 2017 SAB meeting, the board directed staff to develop a grant agreement and conforming regulatory amendments to help improve those regulatory improvements. At the April 24th, 2017 SAB meeting, after input from stakeholders, staff presented an item to seek board approval for a template grant agreement and conforming regulatory amendments. At that meeting, the board directed staff to look into further amendments and also to seek further input from stakeholders before any decision would be made by the board. So an item was brought back to the June 5th, 2000 SAB meeting. And at that meeting, the board approved the grant agreement template and accompanying regulatory amendments after additional input from the stakeholders and updates by staff. And then at the October 24th, 2018 SAB meeting, the board adopted the proposed full-day kindergarten program regulations, forms, and use of a grant agreement as well for that program. What is the purpose of a grant agreement? It was developed to improve oversight and accountability in the school facility program and the full-day kindergarten program. It serves as a binding document, defines the responsibility of both parties, both the district and the state. It shows the determination of the amount of eligible state funding, and it details how those project funds must be reported, including the savings. And it's a useful tool for applicants to ensure they have a thorough understanding of requirements in receiving state funding. And like Brian had mentioned earlier, it identifies common eligible or ineligible project expenditures in the school facility program and the full-day kindergarten program. And as you look through and as we go through, you'll see examples of the grant agreement. In Appendix G, you have tables that show the common eligible project expenditures. And in Appendix H, there's tables for the detailing the common ineligible project expenditures. Who is required to enter into a grant agreement? That's basically all applicants who have a school facility program or full-day kindergarten project that was approved by the board on or after June 5th, 2017. We've been asked for who can sign a grant agreement and when does it need to be submitted? Well, pursuant to the School Facility Program Regulations, Section 1859.90.4 and the Full Day Kindergarten Facility Program Regulations, Section 1860.17, an authorized district representative must submit the grant agreement with signatures to the Office of Public School Construction prior to or concurrently with the fund release. And that fund release is your form SAB 5005 requesting funding from the state. The signed grant agreements may be submitted once the project has received an unfunded approval, but a form 5005 should not be submitted until the district is participating in an active priority and funding round, and the board has awarded an actual apportionment to the project. Okay, so this next slide kind of goes over the basic workflow for the grant agreements. The grant agreement is initially created by the project manager and awaits unfunded approval by the board. Once that project goes to the board, the project is approved by the SAB for an unfunded approval. After the board, the district will be sent an email informing them that the grant agreement is available to be filled out on OPSC Online. At that point, the LEA can go into OPSC Online, sign and submit the grant agreement. Once the signed grant agreement is received, staff informs the executive officer that the grant agreement is ready for their signature. And then the executive officer will electronically sign the grant agreement. And then at that point, the signed grant agreement is available on the LEA's dashboard, and a copy of that can be downloaded for the district's records. Okay, so now we'll go into submitting a signed grant agreement using OPSC Online. The grant agreement in OPSC Online. OPSC Online supports the submission of the grant agreements. Currently, the grant agreements for the school facility program are available on OPSC Online. Coming in the first quarter of next year in 2022, you'll be able to access grant agreements for the full day kindergarten program as well. It is the preferred method of submission as well as the simplest because it does not require the district to prepare or sign a letter. And the district representative or superintendent must be logged into OPSC Online to submit the request. And then a project must be in the SAB approved status in OPSC Online before the district can submit their 5005 or the request for funding. And we'll go into that in a little bit so you can see how the various status of those grant agreements change as we work our way through the slides. Okay, in that workflow, I mentioned that after the district receives its unfunded approval, that they'll be notified by email that they have an email link to the grant agreement on OPSC Online. So this is an example of that email that will be sent to the district with a link. And this is one of 3 ways that the district can access their grant agreement: to review it, to sign it, and to submit it. But this way, all the districts will be notified once their project receives the unfunded approval, and there'll be a link on those emails when you receive it. One of the 2 other ways is you can go into the OPSC Online after a board and after your project has received unfunded approval. If for some reason you didn't receive that email, you can go straight into the OPSC website. There's a link to the website, and on the home page, you'll scroll down to get to one of the featured links. And right there, as you scroll down the page, you'll see the first featured link is the one for OPSC Online. You can just click on that. It'll take you right to the OPSC Online to where you can enter your information to log into the system. And then from there, you can look for your particular project. Third way is, once you're on that home page, you can also click on the resource tab on the right side there. From there, it'll take you to the resources page, and the third line down is the online application tool for school construction projects. You can go ahead and click on that. And once you're on there, the first bullet is that link to the OPSC Online application. Again, that link will take you straight to the sign-in page, so you can enter your information and access OPSC Online. And also, a helpful resource is the OPSC Online user guide, which is the second bullet down, and that can give you some tips and walk you through some of the process, answer some questions for you to help you navigate OPSC Online. Okay, so either way, you'll have to come into this field and to enter your information and your password. You can always seek assistance from your project manager from accounting or someone on the audit team to help you if you have any questions along the lines, or you're having any difficulty signing into the program. That any of those teams can help you and walk you through the process. Okay, so when you get in, once you sign in, it can take you to, if you use the second two methods of getting in, it'll take you to this funding application page on your dashboard. And here, you can use this box to enter your project number and hit search so you can call up the project. So enter that application number, hit the search. Once you do that, that will take you to this screen. And this will list the grant agreement along with the project that it's linked to. In this case, in our example, we had a modernization project that the grant agreement is linked to. But anywhere on this line on the grant agreement, you can click anywhere on that line in order to access the grant agreement. Okay, once you do that, it'll take you to the grant agreement section. You can see there in the blue that you are in the grant agreement section. If you look under drafts, is the name of the grant agreement is draft number 1, and that you see the status right now is draft. And you can see who it was created by, who it was last edited, and when it was updated, any information. And again, there you can click anywhere on that line to open up the grant agreement. So once you click on that line, it opens up to the review and certify section, and you can see a copy of the grant agreement. From here, you can scroll and view the entire grant agreement, or you can click on preview form SAB agreement right there on the right-hand side, and to open up a draft PDF of an unsigned grant agreement on a separate screen to review. If you click on that preview form, the SAB grant agreement on the right, a PDF copy will open up on the bottom left-hand corner. All you do is click on that to open it up. If you double click a couple times, then a couple copies will open up, but just open one of them. And then a copy of the draft grant agreement will open up in your browser. What's nice about it is they have bookmarks on the left-hand side set up. So it opens up automatically to the first page of the grant agreement, but you can use any of these on the left-hand side to navigate the various sections. There's 98 pages, but a lot of those pages are tables for the various type of ineligible and eligible expenditures in the back, but you can navigate straight to the type of program that you have. So for example, you want to look at section E for receiving apportionment and receiving funds, you would click on that. It would take you straight to that section in the grant agreement. If you want to look for accounting for spent funds to find out how you have to account for those funds, you can click on letter F there, and that will take you straight to that section. A lot of questions we get a lot of the times on the tail end as these projects are closing out are some of the common eligible expenditures. You can click right there on G, and that will take you to a listing of the common eligible project expenditure tables. And then just before I get to those tables, here's just a quick blown up view of that first page of what you'll see. Again, it's clearly marked draft with the watermark, so you always know you're looking at a draft. This one has not been signed by the LEA or signed by the executive officer. Okay, so you clicked on G. It takes you straight to section G. There you can see it, advisory listing, detailed common eligible project expenditures. And then as you look down the page, you can see all the different type of projects. Well, if you look below G, there's a G1, a G2, a G3, etc. So that's each one of those has its own particular bookmark depending on what type of project. So for our example, we picked a modernization project with an adjusted grant, and we want the tables for the common eligible project expenditures for that type of project. So you just go down to G5, click on that, and then once you click on that G5, then that will pull up the table for you, so you don't have to search for it or scroll down, and that will be the table for the modernization adjusted grant, the common eligible project expenditures. So it makes it a really helpful and useful tool to jump to certain parts of the grant agreement as you're reviewing them. If you want to look at the tables for ineligible, that's under section H. Right there, H, the advisory listing detailing the common ineligible project expenditures. Again, it'll give you a list of all the tables that are set up. And again, a bookmark was set up for each one of those tables, depending on what type of project that you have. Again, our example in this case would be H5, the modernization adjusted grant project. So we click on that 5, and that takes us straight to the table, the modernization adjusted grant common ineligible project expenditures. So it makes it really useful to, rather than have to scroll page by page, it is 98 pages, but not all 98 pages are specific to your particular project. If you would pull out, and once we're done at the very end and you want to download and print yours, typically a grant agreement is around 35 to 40 pages, not the full 98, because a lot of those tables at the end have to deal with all the different type of projects you may have. But you can use those bookmarks to go specifically to whichever eligible table or ineligible table, as the case may be. Okay, so you're in there reviewing the grant agreement. At any time over here, you can, on the far right-hand side, if you want to download a draft copy of the unsigned grant agreement, you could click on that button and you could download a copy to your own computer. If you want to go back to the review and certify section, you just click on that tab over there with the arrow, and that'll take you right back to it. So you're back on the review and certify section. You can now scroll down to the bottom of the grant agreement to certify the grant agreement by electronically signing it. Okay, so you scroll down to the bottom of the grant agreement. So here you can see at the bottom the section that the district will sign. Yeah, the top part is the very bottom of the grant agreement, and then the bottom is where the district will sign. They'll fill in, mark the box. Yes, I verify, have read and agree the above terms and certification information. You'll enter the date, the name of the district representative, and the phone of the grantee representative. Once you've entered all that information, then you can click on the continue button. And then that will take you to this screen in order to submit. In order to submit the document, you will check on the box that you're certifying that you are the district representative, and then you'll click the green box that says submit the paperless application. Once you've submitted that, then you should get this message right here showing you that this paperless grant agreement was successfully submitted to the Office of Public School Construction. You can click on the Go to Application dashboard after the grant agreement is submitted. If you click on that button to the right, that go to the application dashboard, that takes you back to your dashboard. And the one thing you'll notice right away is that the status, before we went in there, the status was draft, and now the status has changed to submitted. Now that it is submitted to staff, or submitted to the status is changed to submitted, this notifies staff that the grant agreement is ready for the executive officer to sign. So then, as we mentioned earlier in that time flow, then staff will forward the grant agreement to the executive officer or the deputy executive officer for their electronic signature. And then once the grant agreement is signed by the executive officer or the deputy executive officer, the status of the grant agreement changes to SAB approved. So you can see right there, again, that it was submitted previously and now it's changed to SAB approved. And you can then, if you wanted to look at a copy of the grant agreement that's been signed, you can click anywhere on that line to open up the grant agreement. Okay, so you open it up. The first thing that you can notice is the watermark for draft is gone. You can see on the top here that it's marked as SAB approved. You can go and download a completed form at that point if you need a copy of the grant agreement that's signed both by the district and the executive officer. And again, once you hit that download a completed form button, the downloaded form will open up on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. You can go ahead and click on that, and that'll open up the grant agreement. There's two different views. I want to show you the second view this time around. Last time we were in this view right here that shows the bookmark, and then this first one is the page view. You can click back and forth to go between them, whichever is easier for you to use to jump to bigger sections. A lot of times when I've been through it, I found that it's easier to use the bookmarks to jump to the different sections, but it's purely up to you, whichever view you want to do. But we wanted to make sure you see both of them. So this, you can see that the watermark is gone. So now you're able to save a copy of the grant agreement that is approved and signed by both parties. And again, you can download a copy of that by clicking on that same button that we saw when you download a draft copy of the unsigned grant agreement. You can click that and download a copy of the signed grant agreement as well. And then here's a view, the first page of that downloaded completed form. And as you scroll down, you'll see that both parties have signed, that the grantee's representative has signed, and that there's electronic signature signed by the executive officer or by the deputy executive officer. Okay. Contacts, if you have any issues as you're going through the grant agreement submittal process, you can always contact your project manager. You can contact the OPSC accounting team to help you with any questions. The fiscal services K-12 audit team is the one that kind of monitors as the grant agreements are sent out to the district and as the grant agreements are submitted and signed, and that status changes to submitted. So anyone on that K-12 audit team can help you with any of your questions. And you can also email the grant agreement team. This is a direct link to their email address, the OPSC grant agreements at dgs.ca.gov. And you can ask them any questions and they can contact you as well. Okay, so in addition, a really helpful tool after today's presentation, the presentation itself will be posted online on the OPSC website under resources under the OPSC virtual training series. And what's really helpful is that all the series there are posted, so you can review at any time. You can look at the PowerPoint presentations. You can go through the workshop flyers. You can see videos of all the previous training sessions. As you scroll down that page, you'll see the previous virtual training. So for example, the K-12 audit workshop that we did back in January of this year. Like I said, it has a workshop flyer. It has a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation, and then it has a link to the video. And the link is to a YouTube, the OPSC YouTube site, where all the videos are posted. But here's all the direct links to those. You can see the video, the presentations that they had towards the beginning of the year. If you were to click on that link, that would take you to the YouTube, to the OPSC, the Office of Public School Construction, and the staff to the State Allocation Board, that page. You can see down here that first presentation that we did in January of this year, the K-12 School Facility Program Audit Overview, and all the various presentations will be posted here. And later on after today's presentation will be posted there. And there's also a direct link to the YouTube page if you want to go straight through there and not through the OPSC homepage and the resource page. Okay, some of the contact information for the grant agreements in general. The first one is Daniel Flanagan. He's basically our grant agreement guru. He helps fiscal work through all the grant agreements and track a lot of them. So he's a great person to contact for any questions regarding the grant agreement. You also have Hung Bang, who's the K-12 audit supervisor for fiscal services, and Suzanne Reese, who's the operations manager for fiscal services. Okay, I'll stop sharing now, and then like Brian has said, we'll open up for any questions that anyone may have.